My name is Eric Davidson. For the sake of the record, I'm the chair of the RTD board, and I will now call the Tuesday, December 10th special board meeting to order. We are convened as of 4:34 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thank you for your patience as we got set up to start. I'd respectfully ask everyone who has joined to please mute yourself unless you are recognized to speak. For everyone's awareness, the Performance Committee will begin almost immediately following the adjournment of the special board meeting. The Zoom links for the two meetings are the same. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. As has been the case, the board moved to in-person meetings for our monthly gatherings. However, the committee meetings are still generally held remotely via Zoom. Committee meetings are audio and video recorded. Those meeting recordings, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, are posted as soon as practicable on the board's website. You can visit rtd-denver.com for those, and a live stream of this meeting is also available via RTD's YouTube page. During tonight's meeting, we are also providing Communication Access Real-Time Translation, also known as CART. Anyone who would wish to access this service should please send an email to the RTD board office at rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com, and a link will be provided. Additionally, the CART transcript can be translated into Spanish automatically, and anyone who would like access to a Spanish translation of this meeting can also email the board office to request that. I will now call for the roll. Treasurer Bouquet.
Present.
Director Broom.
Present.
Director Busick.
Here.
First Vice Chair Catlin.
Here.
Second Vice Chair Geisinger.
Here.
Secretary Guzman.
I am here.
Director Harwick. I believe Director Harwick is present from the screen. I'll double check in a moment. Director Lewis could not be with us. He is excused absence this afternoon. Director Rosenthal.
I am present.
Director Ruscia is also an excused absence this evening. Director Sloan.
Here.
Director Tisdale.
Present.
Director Whitmore.
Present.
Director Harwick.
Present.
And this is Chair Davidson speaking. I am present as well. That is 12 directors present, 2 with excused absences, those being Director Lewis and Director Ruscia. As a reminder, Director Deschel's seat in District D is vacant due to his recent resignation. We have a quorum. Next is our public participation period, which is open to anyone who would like to address the board. As we have both in-person and remote attendees, in-person comments go first, followed by those who are participating remotely. For those attending in person, please come up to the podium when your name is called. If you have not signed up to speak and would like to do so, you may approach the podium when I call for any additional speakers. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak and have not already done so, please either raise your virtual hand on Zoom, or you can raise your hand by pressing *9 on the phone. Staff will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. If you are dialed in, please press *6 to toggle your mute settings. Please bear in mind that by participating in the public participation process, you are being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, your comments can be submitted in writing. If any speaker has documentation or reference material for the board, or if any member of the public would like to submit written comments, please email those materials to the board office at the email address rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com. During this time, the board will not offer any direct comments or responses. However, if you would like to be contacted regarding your public comment, please email the RTD board office. Speakers, please begin your remarks by stating your name, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to provide your comments, and I will remind you when that has elapsed. Don't have any speakers signed up at this time, so at this time I will now ask if there's anyone present in person first who desired to speak but did not have the opportunity to sign up? If so, you may approach the podium and I will call upon you at that time. All right, not seeing any. I'm going to ask our board office executive manager, Mr. Jack Kroll, has anyone raised their virtual hand on Zoom?
Chair Davidson has introduced. This is Jack Kroll, Executive Manager of the Board Office. I see no one present on the Zoom call at this time with their hands raised.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. And for the sake of the record, could you please read into the record as to whether any emailed comments were received for today's meeting?
Yes, you all received one emailed comment from a Vincent Diamantine with respect to the item on the agenda this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kroll. With no other participants in the queue, we will close the public participation period at this time. There is one recommended action on the agenda as action A. This is the 8th amendment to the GM CEO employment agreement. This is for the Board of Directors to adopt an 8th amendment to the employment agreement with General Manager and CEO, or GM CEO, Deborah A. Johnson, contract, to extend the term of the contract for a period of 18 months through and including May 8th, 2027, as set forth in the attached proposed amendment. Do we have a motion?
Buzek, so moved.
Guzman, second.
I hear Buzick as the movant, Guzman as the second. I'll start with just some brief comments around what is presented here for consideration, and then open up for any questions or discussion from directors. So as we've pursued this path here, and as I think we're all familiar from what's in the packet, we are looking at primarily the primary change of this 8th amendment to the GM CEO's contract is the timeline for the term, which now would go through, as described in the motion, May 8th, 2027. There have been some other adjustments that have been made, some of which include solidifying the performance evaluation framework, which has traditionally changed multiple times and is the subject of numerous of the GM CEO amendments over the past few years. This contract has, as we're all familiar, added in the framework itself to help solidify the performance framework and avoid the need to consistently reinvent the wheel. The contract has also added to the executive perquisite section of the contract in response to our most recent compensation analysis, and does offer some additional compensation in that regard in the form of a wellness package around those executive perquisites. As we've talked about numerous times, this board has pursued a data-driven approach to make sure that we are aligned with compensation studies and analysis looking at market. As we recall, we passed a compensation philosophy which had become quite outdated. I believe it was around 11 years outdated when we updated that. And in that, we do commit to endeavor to maintain market competitiveness in the position. This contract also does then state that the board will endeavor to follow its compensation philosophy. And there are some other adjustments that are made to the contract with respect to severance period and how that works during the extension period of the contract. But this primary change of this is not addressing any of the base compensation. The primary change and focus on this is extending the general manager and CEO, Deborah A. Johnson's contract through that date in May 2027. I'd like to thank the board here for the work to get to this point and for the guidance and work developing this. I'd like to thank General Manager and CEO Johnson for your work here. This extension is intended to be offered to you to provide you the additional time to work with this agency and continue to develop out improvements to operational discipline to RTD. A great deal has changed over the past couple of years, Those changes are often very difficult to take on. We have seen an increase in our operational discipline. We have seen improvements to our financial position. Several, I believe, I'm losing track of time, a week or 2 weeks ago, we went through our performance evaluation, found you to be meeting expectations of the goals set forward, found you to be meeting expectations on core-based job functionality, and found you to be demonstrating all of the adopted agency values. So pursuant to this board's decision that you have met those expectations and are driving important change that has improved the agency for the better, and pursuant to the discussions we have had as a board in terms of the terms by which we would want to extend that contract, I am delighted to bring this recommended action for consideration to my colleagues this evening. So with that being stated and presenting the item, I will entertain any questions or discussion on the motion at hand. All right. Seeing no hands raised at this time, I will proceed to a vote. Treasurer Bouquet.
Yes.
Director Broom.
Yes.
Director Busick.
Yes.
First Vice Chair Catlin.
Yes.
Second Vice Chair Geisinger.
Yes.
Secretary Guzman.
Yes.
Director Harwick.
Yes.
Director Rosenthal.
Yes.
Director Sloan.
Yes.
Director Tisdale.
Abstain.
Director Whitmore.
Yes.
This is Chair Davidson. I am a yes. That will pass with 11 yes votes. We have 1 abstention, and we have 2 excused absent. Thank you very much for that. We thank the General Manager and CEO for your interest in continuing to work and pursue the good work at this agency, for continuing to make difficult choices, for continuing to move courageously as we move RTD into a new phase of development. I thank my colleagues for the consideration of the measure and for concluding the recommended action. At this time, oh, I'm sorry, I may have missed there. We were joined, Director Ruscia. Are you present? Okay, at this time, thank you, everybody. Are there any other matters to discuss?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to comment on my abstention, and that is for reasons previously stated and not for any reasons that have not been previously and publicly stated by me in meetings which relate to the time frame of the extension. I have abstained from that vote, but I want to make it clear it's not a new decision born of anything that might or might not have happened today, but rather based upon a principled concern as expressed previously, which rises to the level of an abstention, but not necessarily of an expression of opposition. Just wanted to say that for the sake of the record. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Director. Any other matters to discuss? All right, seeing none, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I'll just remind everybody that we are moving directly using the same Zoom link, using the room here to move into our Performance Committee, which will be chaired by Performance Committee Chair Catlin. So for those of you wishing to attend that, please wait here for a few moments while we switch everything over. For those on Zoom, you can stay right where you are, and we'll hand the floor off to first Vice Chair Catlin, Committee Chair of Performance. Seeing no other discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move Busick.
All right. And hearing Busick and Whitmore, this meeting will be adjourned as of 4:49 PM Mountain Standard Time. Thank you very much. Director Catlin will get things set up and you'll kick us off.
Is there a packet here? What do we need to do?
Yeah, we gotta close this one.
Okay. And then connect.
Yeah, we gotta wait till we get, she's never gonna, oh, she's in there, so welcome line.
Great.
Director Catlin.
Yes. There we go. Good afternoon. The Tuesday, December 10th Performance Committee will now come to order. We are convened as of 4:52 PM, and I would respectfully ask everyone attending this meeting to mute yourself unless you are recognized to speak. The meeting recording, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, will be posted as soon as practicable on the board's website. During today's meeting, we are also providing communication access real-time translation, also known as CART. Pardon me. Anyone who would like to access this service should send an email to the RTD board office at rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com, and a link will be provided. Additionally, the CART transcript can be automatically translated into Spanish for anyone who would like access to a live transcript of this meeting in Spanish. A live stream of this meeting is also available via RTD's YouTube page. I would now like to call the roll for the committee members. Director Busick.
Here.
Chair Davidson.
Here.
Second Vice Chair Geisinger.
Here.
Secretary Guzman.
I am here.
Director Lewis is excused. Director Tisdale.
Present?
And I am the chair of this committee, Peggy Catlin, and I am present. So for the record, I see that we also have Director Rosenthal, Director Rusha, Director Sloan, Director Whitmore present. So we have And Director Bouquet, I'm sorry. Harwick and Broom, okay. I didn't see their names up there. There they are. Okay, so we have, thank you all for non-committee members for participating today. I very much appreciate it. And hopefully this will yield a productive discussion. I would like to open public comment to anyone who would like to address the committee regarding any topic listed in the published meeting agenda for the current and immediately preceding month. As we have both in-person and remote attendees, in-person comments will go first, followed by those who are participating remotely. For those attending in person, please come up to the podium when your name is called. If you have not already signed up to speak and would like to do so, please approach the podium when I call for any additional speakers. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak and have not already done so, please either raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. If you are dialed in, press *6 to toggle your mute settings. During this time, the committee will not offer any direct comments or responses. However, if you would like to be contacted regarding your public comment, please email the RTD board office at rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com. Speakers should begin their remarks by stating their names and will have up to 3 minutes to provide their comments. Executive Board Manager Jack Kroll, are there any speakers signed up?
Committee Chair Catlin, this is Jack Kroll, Executive Manager of the Board Office. We have no persons present who signed up to provide public comment in the building, and there is no one online at this time who has raised their hand in indication that they would like to provide public comment.
Were there any emailed comments received?
Director Catlin, no, there were not.
Okay, with no participants in the queue, we will close the public comment period at this time. There is one discussion item on the agenda, and that is for the performance dashboard walkthrough. GM CEO Deborah Johnson and John McKay, Executive Business Partner, will you please present this item?
Yes, thank you so much, Chair Catlin. I'm joined, as you indicated during the introduction of this item, with John McKay, the Executive Business Partner. And what we're doing today is a follow-on conversation as it relates to the October board meeting cycle, whereby this body adopted agency scorecard metrics. We are here today to showcase where we are with the dashboard. I want to acknowledge the team that has been working diligently on this since February of earlier this year, and also want to note that as we looked at putting various elements together using in-house mechanisms, we are in the process of procuring a tool for agency performance with data management that will better enable us to position ourselves to be more agile and flexible relative to what we're showcasing as it relates to performance metrics. So with that, I will yield the floor to Mr. McKay, who will take us through the item. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Again, John McKay, Executive Business Partner. We're joined virtually by Ben Celius from my team, Senior Performance Analyst. And I just wanted to shout out the 2 other folks who've been working on this very diligently. So that's Andrea Zuckerman from the communications team and Dennis Lauren from the IT team. They have both been working in the background to both put together the data in the Power BI platform and to post this to the website for your viewing pleasure here in a second. So I will attempt to go through the website right now and sort of go over little bits and pieces of it. It's kind of an awkward format to take questions and comments from online to do this, so I'll try to pause where we can to highlight things as I'm scrolling through here. So let me get rid of some windows on my screen here. There we go. So this is the agency performance scorecard. Let me go back one. So this is our performance dashboard. This has been operational on the RTD website since May of this year. Right now, there are several of these tiles that are on here. These are all in relation to the Accountability Committee recommendations, metrics related to the Accountability Committee that were adopted in 2021. And these were also part of the state audit that was released earlier this year. These are the metrics that were recommended by the Accountability Committee and that we said that we would post on the website. That has been done to answer some of the questions from the state auditors as well. So you'll see we have community engagement, and I won't go through each of the metrics that are posted here, but these are all individual recommendations from the accountability committee that we've agreed to post on our website. There's also information about financial performance, not necessarily related directly to the accountability committee. This is a place where forms can be located. We also couch our survey data here. This is our annual customer, community, employee survey data and other metrics. And what I want to focus on today is the agency performance scorecard, which is this bottom right tile. So this relates to the, as General Manager and CEO Johnson just mentioned, this relates to the blue agency performance scorecard that was adopted by the board in October of this year. This is directly tied to the agency's strategic plan for 2021 through 2026. And these are the strategic priorities, and each one has a set of metrics located beneath it. Right now, we're still building out the definition, so we have this lorem ipsum text up here that in the next week or two, we are building out definitions for each of these items. And again, here as well. So this says as of December 2024, I think there's an opportunity for a more fulsome explanation of what's going on in each of these graphs. But this is essentially what we're looking at going here. So we have 3 years of data. This is what we had discussed earlier in a previous performance committee, that most of the data here will have a 3-year horizon. Some of them we will only have 1 year of data because we've changed the way that we're doing the metrics for the agency. So we'll see here up at the top, and I'll pause here and take a look at this. So for the value to the community, this is in response to customer or the community survey. So in 2022, 78% of individuals responding to the community survey felt that RTD brought value to the community. That increased year over year into 2023 to 84%. 86% was the most recent finding. So this 88% dashed line up at the top here, in 2021, that was the start of our strategic plan. We did a baseline survey for the agency. And so this 88% serves as that baseline. 2021, I will say, was sort of an anomalous year data-wise, and so it may not be the best starting point for us to start looking at some of these data going forward. So there is an opportunity for adjustment. We can reset the baseline to a 2022 year if that's the board's interest to do so. And let me go to another data point here. And Ben, if I'm missing anything, please feel free to raise your hand on the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to you. This is one of those opportunities where it would almost be easier for me to be doing this on a virtual meeting rather than sitting here. I'm going to highlight enhanced perception of personal security. This is, I just want to call this one out specifically. This one the question was, what, if you're not writing RTD services any longer, what is the reason? And 43% of people said that it was because of personal security aboard buses and trains. Moving on to customer excellence, actual on-time performance is listed here, and we show data over the course of Power BI. Takes a second to load. Takes more than a second to load. Okay, so this goes back through January of 2020. This shows data points over the last 3 years, and you'll see a huge spike in paratransit on-time performance starting in about September of last year. It's really encouraging data. But we can also see that this 88.7%, this is an on-time, this was the internal metric for the internal goal for paratransit on-time performance. And you can see that since November of last year, that we've been well above the mark, and you can see that over the last 12 months, the rolling average is 90.8% for paratransit on-time performance, which is above the baseline set in 2021. Again, if it's the board's desire to do so, we can take a look at what it would look to reset that baseline to 2022, which is more of a typical year operationally, but that's a discussion for a future performance committee possibly. And so I'll pause here. So this, as I said, these are all the metrics related to the agency performance scorecard, and I'll just bring this up briefly to refresh everyone's memory. This is the blue scorecard. There is a green scorecard that is used for internal strategic initiative metrics tracking, but the blue one is the one that was adopted by the board in October of 2024. These were adjusted from the original strategic plan to incorporate some additional metrics and to sort of pose the questions that were posed by the performance committee. How is RTD achieving its vision to be the trusted leader of mobility? How has RTD delivered value to the community, et cetera? And so I will pause here and take any questions. If anybody wants me to highlight anything in particular on this, this is live on the RTD website right now. So if anyone wants to take a spin on it, it's available to them right now.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. Are there any comments or questions from committee members?
I have some, but is there more to go?
You have some additional,
I do,
Materials.
actually. I just wanted to back up 1 second to the larger, performance dashboard. There are more metrics that are being fleshed out in real time right now. Within the next week or so, we will have additional data, additional years of data points on a lot of these additional metrics that we're tracking that were related to the accountability committee. So we should have a broader view, a 3-year plus view of some of these other metrics as well. And so, like I said, that's being built out in real time in the background, probably before the end of the year. Most of these things will be available. None of this data was available before the board set us on this path. There was a communication going back and forth with the performance committee back in, I want to say, September, and we had discussions with Chair Catlin and Chair Davidson, sort of identifying the things that should be posted on this website. And so it's taken a little bit of time to sort of get some of the background data, some of the historical data that's associated with these metrics, and that process is nearly complete, but in the next couple of weeks, that should be all done at this point.
okay, recognizing that you just pulled up a sample of some of these metrics, I guess I would encourage directors to take some time to go in and look in detail. But in the meantime, are there any specific metrics that Mr. McKay did not highlight that you would like to see in more detail tonight?
The 3 speakers waiting, but no pictures showing up, so I don't know. I know I'm one of those. See at the bottom of the screen, it says 4 speakers waiting.
Yeah, that's just odd that it's not appearing. The order we have here is Director Bouquet, Director Geisinger, Director Tisdale, Director Davidson.
Okay, Geisinger,
Tisdale, then Davidson.
okay, we'll go in that order then.
I'm non-committee.
Oh, I'm fine. Okay, Director Bouquet, please.
Thank you very much, Chair Catlin. I guess if we're on the topic of metrics, could we open safety by chance? Sure. Perfect. Would security fall under that tab as well, or security its own tab?
There is a metric in the agency performance scorecard. So there are metrics related to safety here in community value and in customer excellence as well.
Could we open the
Yeah.
enhanced perception of personal
Yes.
security?
That was the one that I'd highlighted earlier. And this is in relation to the, let me go back 1 click here. This was in relation to the community value survey, customer excellence survey. I can open that one as well. So this is customer impression of personal security aboard vehicles. Like I said, the other one was for in relation to the community survey. That was the survey that we conduct where we get a random sampling of households within the metro area and send out surveys directly to them. These are the intercepts of customers aboard bus and rail.
Okay.
We're on the topic of metrics. I don't want to dive away from it, Director Catlin, but could I ask another question regarding how this will be talked to our stakeholders? Or would you like to?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. I guess the question is then, who is the audience of this dashboard from the staff's perspective?
So this is a public-facing dashboard. This is to anyone and everyone. This is available for the board in conversations with the constituents, with electeds around the district. This is all pulled directly from operational data So it is the most current source that we have available to us, which is why this performance dashboard is intended to be a one-stop shop for all data. Some of these things were couched in board reports previously, and we heard from external groups that some of those things were difficult to find. And so we wanted to put it on front and center on our website so that people could make one click to get to all of this information. So.
Perfect, thank you. Are there active plans to advertise this to our stakeholders?
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Director Bouquet, for the question. Absolutely. As Mr. McKay indicated, the teams have been working diligently to pull all the data together. And so it would be our intent to apprise, perhaps via a press advisory, but also through other mechanisms. And I know Mr. Summers is in the back.
I just saw him nodding his head,
Okay,
so.
yes. Oh, he texted me. Wait a minute, hold on. Let's see here. Yes, he does have a news release already planned when this is done in a matter of weeks. And as we work with our constituencies, apprising them accordingly, there's other mechanisms that we use to communicate outwardly. We have the read and write. We have other elements that are featured on our website through social media posts and things of the like as we go forward. And just earlier this afternoon, we participated, when I say we, the chair of the board, myself, Mr. Davies, and then some of you sitting around this table in reference to representation from the General Assembly, where we were talking about some of these data points, and we're going to be following up through our lobbyist, BBMK, because we made commitments to provide data, and we're going to ensure that they're aware where they can go find this data going forward as well.
Thank you.
Did that answer you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Actually, thank you. I was going to ask the same thing about communicating this out so that people know that it's available. So I like to hear there's a strategy. For the record, Director Rosenthal has joined us in person. So thank you for coming in. Next, we have Director First Vice
Director's fine.
ever, Director Geisinger.
I'll
Thank
answer
you.
to that. Thanks, John. I know you've been putting a lot of work in on this. I spent some time yesterday going through the current dashboard. And so you're adding another section to what's there. Is that what you're doing?
So yes, let me back up one. So this is just an additional tile right now in the bottom right-hand corner of the existing dashboard. And as of right now, I'm on the website, on the publicly available website right now.
Okay. You know, I think that there's information in our board briefing documents and other information that we have that isn't in some of what's up there. And I think it could make, I hope you'll be looking at that too, what's there currently, because I think it would make it more usable by people. For instance, under ridership, we only have 1 month of data. And I think what we need to see is, what is that month, you know, last year, what is that month in 2019, and where are we year to date, some of those things. I think that's an important piece for the public and for us in terms of making decisions. Vacancies, just to give another example, show up under both financial data and whatever the other one is that talks about operation. Yeah, that's ridership. It just shows September. And I think, you know, I hope we can go back and look at this. I'm happy to sit down and because I've spent some time on it and go through some thoughts. But I think what people want to see is where have we been? You know, where are we now? Where are we now compared to the past? Where are we now compared to earlier in the year or to budget? I'm not saying we have to have all of that, but some of that would be helpful. I think, for instance, vacancies, like I said, shows up in 2 different places. But for bus, it says this is under construction. And I think we have pretty good data on that right now, right? You look like you have something to say.
Madam Chair? Yes, Director Geisinger, we do. And to the point that Mr. McKay was raising, we are building this out with the teams to include that all in one space, recognizing at this juncture that we don't have a platform. They've been using Power BI. We're pulling from disparate sources to compile this. We're in the midst of a procurement to have a data management system going forward. So I just wanted to iterate that because we do have the data independently and folks are building that into the system. And John may not say this, but I will, but just yesterday in the midst of them preparing for this, we lost some data. And so with that as a backdrop, the intent is to have all the year-to-year comparisons, as Mr. McKay said early on, going back to 2021 or 2022, as we look to go into 2025 for 3 years.
Madam Chair, it would depend on the data set as well. Sometimes we just don't have the data available, which is actually what you're looking at here for the ridership. That some of the data was maybe not quite reliable, so we want to make sure that what we're putting out there is accurate and correct. So these are among the data sets that we're building back out. So as I said, for these other 8 tiles that are on here, so community engagement, customer experience, environmental impact, some of these things are the data that we're collecting right now, so that we'll be able to show a trend line for the last few years. So bear with us for another couple of weeks here. So,
Okay.
and to your point about the board briefing documents, I would maybe recommend that some of the information currently housed in the board briefing documents instead reside here, so that it's a one-stop shop.
I would agree with that, and I also think that potentially bringing back that information to our packets, certainly not everything in the board briefing documents. I think we got to a point with a previous RTD director that wanted all of our checkbook information in there, and to me, that's like pages and pages of information that really isn't necessary. So trying to figure out how to make this more accessible to us and to the public, I know that's what you're doing. And so I'm glad to hear that we're going to be looking at past years. And I also think that I'm looking at environmental impact, and right now it just talks about, I think, our facility energy usage. And then you may have some more of that in the scorecard, but there's a real story to tell there. And I think it's a marketing story in addition to an information story, because what we did with the ozone month, and the amount of energy saved and of ozone and those sorts of things, what we're doing with I guess less with the youth in terms of environmental, but there may be a story there. And I think just the fact that we've got the fleet and facilities plan, I know that's very new, but I think that, thinking it through in addition to decision-making information and public information, what is our story? And so I'm hoping that we can do some of that. Safety and security is another one. I think, the perceptions of security good, but, talking about, I think we've made great progress in making our facilities safer. And, thinking of Union Station in particular, but, some of the, I don't know if it's assault data or what exactly we have. What is that what we have, Ms. Johnson?
If I may, yes, so we have different data sets relative to how many contacts that have been made as it relates for people parking at park and ride lots, that type of data that we have showcased. RTD, PD, our colleagues there have showcased during the Operations Safety and Security Committee. So we're talking about transferring that information here as we go forward, and that's our ultimate goal.
That's great. I like the fact that we're getting a tool that's going to help automate that. I'm happy to sit down with you, in the next few weeks as you get it, because I've spent a fair amount of time on this. But, thanks for the work. I think it's starting to fill out, and that getting some of that data in will make it much more usable. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Geisinger. And I would agree. We look forward to seeing what the next couple of weeks will bring. Appreciate that.
If I may? So what we can do when we have this built out, because it was our goal to have this completed before the end of the year, we will send out some correspondence with the link, so everybody can see that going forward, the end product, which is an interim product, recognizing that we're in the process of procuring, as I indicated, a data management tool. And John, is that active? For procurement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can't talk too much about that because this is an active solicitation, but wanted you all know that's the intent going forward, and this was the interim step with all the team pitching in and building this out. Thank you.
That would be great to
Madam Chair, if I may.
get a memo. Yes.
I just wanted to also add that, like I said, this information, the genesis of this request originally came from the Accountability Committee. And so that serves as the kernel of the information that we post online here. That's not the end of this. There are other data sets, there is other information that can be housed on this website. So I just wanted to point that out, that these were the things that we started with. There's an opportunity to continue the conversation with the Performance Committee to determine the other elements that you might want to see on this website. And going back one moment, Director Geisinger, to your point about the information going into the packets, I guess my question is, so this is live current data. If we were to publish this in the packet that sort of becomes stale data, I again might recommend that you avoid publishing stale data in a PDF format, because this is a live, readily accessible tool database that anyone can use. So again, this may be a conversation for a future Performance Committee, but I'm not really sure. I can't visualize what that would look like on an ongoing basis when this tool is available 24/7, constantly updated based on the best data that we have available to us.
Thank you. May I?
Please.
Thanks. I think that's great. I guess my thought went to the fact that, bringing that up, and I hear what you're saying. I know that our chair has been raising some of the data in his chair's report in the last few months, and so I think it's just something that we all look at our packets all the time. The board briefing documents, like I said, I think there's a lot of good information in that, and I do look at it, but the fact that we have all of those check things, and that did come from the board, there's no question. It was, like I said, a previous board member. I don't know where the rest of the board is on that, but I find that unnecessary. So, I think we could talk about it. Maybe it's something that we talk about in the Performance Committee in the future, but when I say put it back in the packet, I'm just thinking, how do we keep this top of mind and, fresh at that time for us making decisions? Thanks.
Thank you, Director Geisinger. And I would agree the check register was, I always said, well, what are we going to use this information for? But that was in the past. Excuse me. I would like to add, Mr. McKay, that you mentioned that there are some data that you're not real comfortable with, that it may or may not be accurate. And rather than just having a void, is there some way to maybe make a statement that that's under verification, or trying to make sure that it's as accurate as possible, so that it's not just a blank, that people understand that you're working on it and trying to get it correct and current. So that would be my comment on some of those data.
Director, to your point, there is a place on this dashboard where there's additional data that we could add to describe what's going on. Sometimes if there's a significant dip in ridership or something like that, there is an opportunity for us to give the public an indicator as to why that's happening. And this space up here is where we would do that.
Excellent. I like that. Okay. Is that all, Director Geisinger? Okay. Up next is Director Tisdale, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Last week, I attended the APTA Winter Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C., and I had the opportunity to make remarks there that I think are pertinent to what we're discussing today relative to performance and a performance dashboard. And specifically, and it's short, so I'll just insert into the record here, if I may, the remarks that I made at that Ledge Conference at Union Station in DC. If we intend to have an effective and rewarding non-confrontational relationship with the Trump Department of Transportation, it is incumbent upon us to be aware of and responsive to the goals and standards of that administration. This is neither a challenging nor a novel concept for us as we dealt with it from 2017 through 2021. Our strong alliance with Jane Williams as the administrator at FTA was successful and mutually respectful, and it was founded upon the principle that transit agencies should add value to their communities. From information already available to us, it is apparent that the new administration is looking for deliverables from transit agencies that are both sensible and measurable. Topping the list are two things that we already recognize as central to an effective public transportation system: increasing ridership and collecting fares. It is difficult to make an argument to the government that they should advance us additional funds when we negligently, if not deliberately, forego the simple task of requiring riders to remit their fares when using our systems. The least we can do is shore up our fare collection procedures and make a good faith showing that we are contributing what we can while seeking more financial support from the government. And while some may argue that additional funding from the federal government is necessary in order to increase ridership, there is no doubt that agencies that can demonstrate increases in ridership will be and should be looked upon more favorably than agencies that simply give up on the ridership metric in favor of amorphous and vague social policies. Just as it was during the first Trump administration, the DOT is a value-added assessor. If we can demonstrate added value by increasing ridership and by collecting fares, we will be rewarded. I submit it's that simple. I'm happy to say there was overwhelming support for my remarks, and actually only one voice in opposition out of the over 100 transit leaders from across the country who were there. So that leads me to the question. First of all, can we look at the ridership graph again, please? We have, as shown here, very limited data presented, but I understand it's a work in progress. I know that there is more that can be added, and as I hear, more that will be added. That, I submit, is critical to getting this relationship with the Trump Department of Transportation established so that we can enjoy the continued very good relations that RTD Denver has experienced with the FTA and with the FRA for our commuter rail. So I want to get back to making sure that we all concentrate on that ridership metric and use it as a standard that we can report and that we can trumpet to all the world so that they understand that we are adding value. Can you show me a graph on fare evasions?
I cannot.
I say it's a trick question, I know. I mean, the answer is no. And the thing is, that's something that we have already heard from people who are in the Department of Transportation now and those whom we are told are being nominated to those positions are very interested in. And that's why at the APTA Executive Committee and the retreat in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, we talked about fare evasions as being something that we have to show progress on for the reasons that I stated in my remarks I made in DC. We have some wonderful charts. I mean, there's perception of equity and so forth. That's all fine and good. That's terrific. That's great. I think it's wonderful that we do that, but I submit we have to remember we have some of the true basics that we have to articulate. And to the extent that we can focus on that and add it, I think we advantage ourselves with all those people who are responsible for giving us a big chunk of money, which is a big part of what we live on when you look at our budget. And I will do a shameless plug right now. The APTA Transit Board Members Committee is sponsoring a Board Talk Live next Tuesday at 4 o'clock on fare evasion. And Paul Smedberg, who is the first vice chair at WMATA, will be facilitating that discussion for us. And at our executive council meeting of the TBMs today, we talked about having everybody join in on that. And I would very much invite all of you to tune in and participate in the Board Talk Live session that we're doing next Tuesday at, and I'm sorry, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, it's 2 p.m. Mountain Time when we're doing this. And let's just keep our eyes on the prize. Keep our eyes on the prize. Sales tax revenue, big part of how we live, sales and use tax. But those federal grants are so important to what we're doing. How do we endear ourselves? How do we ingratiate ourselves to the administration and convince them that RTD Denver still is a great transit agency to receive these funds? What do we need to do to convince them? And as we talked about last week in Washington, ridership and addressing fare evasions is a big part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Tisdale, and I presume that the announcement from APTA regarding that 2 o'clock meeting will be posted. Okay, thank you. Chair Davidson, please.
Just a note on the speaking order. Our system really likes it when Eric speaks, but we continue to see some bugs in this. Actually, after Chair Davidson is Director Rosenthal, and then I do believe earlier I saw that Director Ruscia's hand was raised online. So for your awareness, Director Catlin, I believe the order would be Chair Davidson, Director Rosenthal, Director Ruscia.
Thank you. We do like looking at Eric's mug, though. So, all right, Director Davidson, please.
All right, I'll be Director Davidson 1, I guess, here. Thank you. Thanks for the work and updates here. Director Tisdale, thanks for the comments. I was just brainstorming what we might even look at and recalling that in the board briefing documents, we do see fare revenue trends. And that's also where we have the we're captured our boardings as well. So perhaps there's something that can be gleaned at the intersection of those in the data. So thanks for the thought. I'll just a couple of questions. So, I fully understand that the data is a big part of this, and, garbage in may get garbage out. So, excited to get to a point where we have, everything all built out. I know you are too, in pursuing that. Just curious on this data management system procurement. Is there an aspect of this that includes data cleansing? I mean, I can imagine, even looking historically through board briefing documents, we have things in different systems, we've tracked things differently. I'm wondering if you might just share what efforts are underway. I know there's an interest from directors to see more years in the past. On-time performance, for example, I think it's a bus has several, and then we go to rail and there's fewer. My guess would be that that has a lot to do with either the quality of the data or the availability of the data. So as we're going through this data management system procurement, are there aspects around that? And would you mind just kind of speaking to what the data cleanup looks like in addition to the presentation of it?
Thank you very much. So right now, the data on the back end is it lives in different places within the organization. And so right now, it's all filtered through a couple of different sources, through Power BI, essentially. But if somebody were to accidentally take a data set or a point of data that's completely anomalous. So ridership, they add another 0 on the end of it right now. We don't want that to show up on our public website. And so that would throw off the graph, change the entire scale of the thing that we're showing online. So right now, there are some checks and balances internally to make sure that what gets published is true and accurate. There is some backend. We actually did one tech demo earlier today on one of the 2 platforms that we're looking at. And it will give you an alert if the data point is outside of the norm. It can also track not only your goals, but difference above or below the goal, so we can see so we can tell that the trend is off if something is weird. To your point about data cleansing, like I said, it's only the data going in is only coming out is only as good as what goes in, and we will have different teams providing that data through whichever the platforms that we eventually go with. That they will be in charge of monitoring some of their own data, but then we'll also have performance analysts to take a look at some of those things internally to make sure that what is being put out is true and accurate from the data source.
Does that answer your question, Sheriff Davidson?
It does, yeah, thank you. And if I may, just one other question.
Please.
So given that it is disparate systems and disparate teams, which is the nature of the beast, for things, for example, that are monthly reporting, and there's a number of things that are annual cadence, and again, thank you, our CFOs here, for the financial metrics that have been added, tracking variance over time, I think is going to be great. But for those that are monthly, is there a coordinated cadence that you envision in terms of how those different teams put data together? That already exists to some extent for the board briefing documents. I would suspect it's kind of similar, but is there any change in process there? How are we going to manage the monthly reporting?
From what I understand, the 2 software packages that we're looking at, there's another demo coming up tomorrow, so I may learn more about this tomorrow. But I believe that the one that we looked at previously offers sort of an alert or a notification when a data set is due, so that the teams responsible for that will know to publish it to the website. And if it's months in arrears, then they should be receiving notifications that it's not being posted. And if it's not showing up on the website, we'll have the opportunity to look at that going forward. It's not like anybody who's going to be monitoring it constantly, but if anybody sees that if the ridership data is 3 months out of date, I have a phone and people can call me too. So,
Okay, great. Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Mr. McKay.
Thank you. Director Rosenthal, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to your team, Mr. McKay, for working on this important public disclosure tool. And, sort of to build on and reiterate what, particularly Directors Geisinger and Bouquet pointed out in regards to the safety issue, to make sure that we are presenting that kind of data clearly. As I look at the tiles, I don't see one on safety. It's that data is buried under community value, and I think it is of importance enough to where it merits its own spot. And I think when people are looking under safety, they're like, oh, safety, that means, Howie. Right. So a safe environment, exactly. So safety is different from security. As you know, we changed the name of the committee to reflect that. So what I'm thinking is if we have a separate tile for security and a separate tile for safety, safety meaning this is, for our, make sure there are no incidents and accidents. However, for security, that's how people feel. And then, some of the information that Director Geisinger pointed out would be helpful. Some of the measures that have been taken, the improvements on the system, but also, I think also the number of officers that we have, the increase that we have hired, that's a demonstrated positive over time, how many more we are hiring internally, and also the numbers of Allied Universal that we have. And I think that's all data that could be under, and obviously, we can all have our opinions as to how this thing should look, and I know you're probably looking at some of those things, but just to offer that is of such importance to the community that I think it merits its own tile. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rosenthal. Moving on, Director Rusha, are you available?
Yes. Hi, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. So I need to put down my phone and turn my camera off so that I can follow along. The Wi-Fi is a bit spotty here. Madam Chair, I have a couple of questions for Mr. McKay. Is it okay if I just dialogue briefly for time?
That's fine.
Thank you. Okay, so I was my first question is I was looking for the paratransit data, and I know that you flipped to it, but I can't find it, and I don't see it under accessibility. Could you remind us where that is, and could we pull that up? I did have a question about how we're measuring that.
Director Rush, do you mean the service availability or on-time performance, or what aspect of paratransit are you looking to see?
Thank you, sir. I think you might have made a point. If we have those, so if we have those metrics spread across different tiles on the website, then it is hard for us to get a holistic grasp on how we're doing. The one that you had pulled up was on time performance.
Director T, oh, go ahead. Sorry. So Director Rusha, one of the data sets that I mentioned that we're still looking at the data to make sure that it's sound is paratransit on-time performance. Going back to, one moment here, I'll try to get to this. Customer excellence. Okay, should be on the screen.
Okay, thank you. And I'm on my phone, so it's small to me. So I'm trying to follow along with our dashboards, plural, I think, online. And could you just remind me where that is? Is that where this OTP metric is?
You bet. It's on from the performance dashboard, the bottom right tile, which is the performance scorecard, the agency performance scorecard, and then go to customer excellence, and it's under actual on-time performance. And we say actual on-time performance because there is another metric related to perceived on-time performance.
Okay, thank you. So as that's loading for me, I just wanted to, I think actually this is a perfect time to just to make a few points actually while we're doing this is I appreciate the website and, you know, this information. I think from a user standpoint, just it's some of it's still buried and difficult to find. And I spent some time, and I would not have thought to go down the path that you just told me, Mr. McKay. So maybe that's also something that our comms department can take a look at just from the user perspective. And I, from a marketing perspective, and to that end, I had a couple of questions about our dashboard. And the first is, have we checked to make sure that this dashboard is ADA accessible? And has that been tested yet?
Director, I'll have to get back to you on that, but I believe that because it's part of the overall RTD website, that it is accessible at the moment. But don't quote me on that at the moment. I will get back to you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I wasn't sure if, because we're using, for now, Microsoft BI, and the way that things are nested, if it was accessible, fully accessible to individuals who might use screen readers or other technology. So it's something I think we should certainly check. And then just back to my comment about how many clicks it takes to get to information. I think that's also just a communications and accessibility issue as well. So I would appreciate if we just take a look. And again, I see this as a work in progress. But to that end, on the on-time paratransit, this is where I have a question about our metrics. And you might have answered it, but when we calculate on-time performance in this dashboard, not what we report to the FTA, are we also considering any cancellations or no-shows from either side?
Mr. McKay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. So that's part of the problem in my seat, is that I'm not sure of the data or the source of the data or what the data encapsulates for each of the metrics that we track. So that belongs to the team that puts it onto the website. So like I said before, we'll have to have some information added to this website just to explain what is being included in the charts and graphs. So point well taken that I don't know the answer to that question. The average person looking at this wouldn't know the answer to that question. So it's an opportunity for us to add additional context at the top of the page here.
Okay, thank you, sir. I tried to zoom in with my computer and it was very spotty Wi-Fi. So you cut out a little bit earlier, and I think you had referenced possibly we going back to like 2022 as a baseline, which I think that's what you said. I'm not sure, and the cart cut out as well. I just wanted to note, and this is not to disparage staff or you, Mr. McKay, or any of the work gone into this, but that the FTA guidance on paratransit for OTP says that agencies should aim for 100%. We always plan for 100%. That is always the goal. And I think especially when you consider, if you're a paratransit user, you have to book your ride way in advance. There's a window by which you could be picked up. This is not the same kind of service where, when we think about fixed route, if my bus is supposed to arrive, at 8:30 and we think on time is within, I think 5 minutes is our standard, with Access-a-Ride, that on time is a very large window relatively. So I think from an equity standpoint, I like to see that we have improvement, and it looks like we'll have to get into the data to make sure this is the right data to show. But 100% is really the expectation of the FTA, and I think our paratransit customers. Again, this isn't to disparage staff for what we have in front of us, but something I thought it was important to put on the record as a director who cares very much about this issue. And I also, was going back to what Director Geisinger had noted about some of the information in the board packets aren't available, or maybe we can't find it yet in these dashboards. I do concur, and I think it's important that we don't have different pockets of information in different places. And I would also offer that it is good to have a PDF, especially, if just so that we are communicating effectively. And I don't know what's going on with the procurement, but if there is a way to easily export data across these metrics, I think that it would be useful in terms of transparency and for directors and for performance committee, the future performance committee. And I did also just want to, I had a question and then comment. And so have we discussed putting data about customer service complaints on our dashboard, or maybe including them in our board packets? Again, that is something that we did do for quite a while, and it included paratransit, but I think that is a good line of sight. I know we have a community survey that surveys riders and non-riders and frequent riders and infrequent riders, but and it looks like you are going through the dashboard, Mr. McKay, but is that something that we'll have insight into? We used to get those by category.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Please.
So I will confer with staff. I appreciate the comments that Director Ruscia put forth. I need to educate myself on what was included previously because I'm not aware of the reference that was made, but I'm happy to engage with Mr. Summers as we look at that data set. going forward. So we can circle back in that same communique that was referenced earlier when we get this built out in the interim step and provide an update on where we are with that.
Thank you. That would be great. Does that answer your questions, Director Ruscia?
Yes, and just finally, I wanted to just a note because we talked about the check register, and I believe that was passed by a board resolution. So if I think it might just be appropriate in our board packets or somewhere to put the link, because we do have that link online. And that is also something that the state does. Like they have a check register as well. And so perhaps not pages and pages in a board packet, but a hyperlink. And just to note, I think I think that we would have to, if we were going to completely take away that forward-facing information, I think we would have to do that by a vote of the board. But I concur, there might just be a more efficient way to share that information. And I actually do appreciate that right now I could go online and I can find that check register and download an Excel file. So I actually do credit staff for that. And I'd like to keep that option. But other than that, I understand this is a work in progress and I appreciate what the team is doing. And, perhaps there could just be a follow-up if that would be permissible. Maybe Mr. McKay and I could meet in the future and I can get a better understanding of these metrics and data. So I'm better informed as we go into the new year, or we can meet after the new year. And that concludes my my comments for the evening. And thank you everyone for the work on this.
Thank you, Director Ruscia. I believe Ms. Johnson has some comments to make.
Yes, thank you so much. I was able to get confirmation from staff. As you may recall, just a couple of weeks ago, Stuart Summers, Chief Communications and Engagement Officer, he and his team put together this dynamic report that showcased customer engagement activities that went through to October 31st, and we indicated that there would be an additional report that would go through years in. So the report that we shared last month did provide that data, including paratransit cases by category, i.e. service complaint, experience, Q-Ride, that's the software that's used to schedule paratransit trips, as well as commendations, and both paratransit and fixed route complaints or comments, as we would qualify them, because you could have a commendation or a commendation or a complaint. They were broken out separately. So this goes back to the further point of utilizing these disparate mechanisms in reference to showcasing data to include that here on the dashboard going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments by directors? Well, I wanted to say thank you for moving this along. I think some of us are still anxious to see the final product and look forward to seeing additional work coming forward by the end of the year. Are there any other comments from directors? Okay. Are there any other matters to discuss? I don't see any. All right. In a moment, this committee will meet in executive session to receive legal advice and to discuss personnel matters regarding the GM CEO's 2025 performance goals. I would like to append the motion to move into executive session to state that the Performance Committee meeting will be deemed adjourned after it adjourns into the executive session. For public transparency, this means that once the committee moves into executive session, the main meeting will be adjourned. I will now entertain a motion to move into executive session to discuss the following. Pursuant to 24-6-402 Prin 4, Prin F, Prin 1, CRS for consideration of personnel matters regarding the general manager and CEO's 2025 performance goals and input from the board of directors on the same. Is there a motion?
So moved, Guzman.
Is there a second?
Second, Davidson.
I have Guzman as the movement and Davidson as the second. The main meeting is, is there any discussion? Are there any no votes? Moving into executive session. Seeing none, that means that there are, how many committee members? 6 yes votes and no votes, 0 no votes. So the main meeting is adjourned at 5:54 PM, and we will proceed into executive session. For all of those who are expected to attend, would you please stay seated? And for any remote directors and/or staff expected to participate, please move to the other Zoom room. And for everyone else, would you please vacate the room at this time and take all of your belongings with you? While we will transition as quickly as possible, please allow staff a few minutes to switch everything over from the public meeting to the executive session.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, 6 yes votes, 0 no votes, 1 absent. Excused.
Thank you for the correction. 1 absent. All right, we'll re-adjourn approximately 6 o'clock.